Good evening and welcome to the November 12th regular council meeting. I'll call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. I will now ask if there's any disclosures of pecuniary interest. I will declare an interest on item CP 2024363, application for official plan amendment and zone change Clark Commercial Shopping Center, Inc., 223 Clark Road East. I wish to declare that I have pecuniary interest on the above noted matter for the following reasons. The application is requesting a use that the policy's official plan would encourage to locate in the central area and discouraged from the service commercial area designation. I own a property in the central area that could be affected by the outcome of this decision, and I'll provide the clerk's office with a copy of that already, but there's a signed one as well. Is there any further declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. We will move on to the council minutes for October 15th. Councillor Haliru, please.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Through your mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Haliru, seconded by Councillor Beckett-Bosons, that the minutes of the October 15, 2024 regular meeting of council be adopted as presented. Discussion?
All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And I believe I missed the consent agenda there. So Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Haliru, that the items contained in the October 15th, 2024 consent agenda be adopted as presented.
Thank you very much. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And then we'll move to Councillor Beckett-Bosons for the October 28th special meeting of council minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilson, that the minutes of the October 28, 2024 special meeting of council be adopted as presented.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Now, we have received word from our Integrity Commissioner that they are slightly delayed, and we'll be waiting on confirmation from them when they are ready to attend. They'll be notifying the clerk. So in the meantime, we will move on to, is the clerk okay with moving to item number 7? No, okay. I will turn it over to Mr. Grace for the introduction. Please, item number 7.
Thank you. We appreciate the excellent work that the Clerk's Department has done in this report. This is a way to ensure that we're distributing information properly and we're very transparent. Rather than forcing a bureaucratic process, we've developed a process that means that people can access information, especially information that we routinely disclose, in a much more easily manner. I'm stealing the clerk's thunder, so at that point I'm going to stop and turn it over to the clerk to describe the report.
Thank you, Michael, for that introduction. The report recommends the adoption of a municipal routine disclosure and active dissemination policy, really to streamline access to municipal records and reduce reliance on the formal Freedom of Information request process. So currently, requests that could be handled more effectively through routine disclosure are routed through FOI process, which can lead to delays in the requester obtaining the information they are seeking, and the occasional frustration, I won't lie. So under the proposed policy, specific records would circumvent the Freedom of Information process, which is governed under the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, and would instead be disclosed through the department responsible for that record. The records that are recommended for routine disclosure are those that flow through the FOI process and are routinely disclosed without issue. The adoption of such a policy has become common practice across many Ontario municipalities as staff look to increase access to public records and to streamline FOI submissions. The policy really aims to provide staff with clear guidelines on what information can be routinely released to the public and how it can be disseminated, such as through the town's website. So we're looking at updating our website to include more bylaws and routine information. It will really enhance transparency and help manage the increasing volume of FOI requests, which has grown significantly over recent years, and that's pretty standard across municipalities. By adopting the policy, staff will be able to handle more straightforward requests for information like property records, for example, without the need for formal FOI requests, thus allowing our department, the clerk's department, to focus on more complex cases as they're received. We believe that the routine disclosure and dissemination policy really aligns with our strategic plan of being open and receptive and supporting the corporate goal of transparency and inclusivity. And the policy has implications across all departments. It really shifts how information is managed and shared. So we plan on working with each affected department to establish policies and processes to help support what's in the policy in front of you. We do recommend council approval of the attached policy, but are happy to answer any questions at this point in time.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of the report? Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you. Through you to the clerk. Danielle, do you have, you were just saying that you're going to be working with different departments to develop the policy and procedures. Do you have a timeline in which that will be looking at or taking effect?
Through the mayor to you, Councillor Hughes. So if adopted tonight by council, the plan is to try to get it rolling quite rapidly. We've already had conversations with all departments, so we had circulated this internally and said, here's what we're planning. Do you have any questions, concerns? Are there any records that you think should be added or deleted from this? So we've already laid the groundwork. So I think it should be within the next month or so. Obviously, if a department will adopt a fee for the record, so it would be in alignment with the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. We'd have to introduce that through the forthcoming fees and charges bylaw. So probably a fair estimate would be early in the new year.
Further questions of the report? No. I have a question pertaining to if further policies are added, is that something that would have to be brought back for the policy update, or is that something that can be done through staff?
So these would be kind of internal documents, kind of how-to and SOPs that we create to support the policy. So they wouldn't necessarily have to come before council. This would just be clerk's support of the rollout of this policy.
Any further questions? Seeing none, Deputy Mayor Wilson, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hudson, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive staff report C-033-24 as information, and that Council approves the routine disclosure / active dissemination policy submission as attached to this report.
Very much discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we have received word that the Integrity Commissioner is all set to go, so we will go back up to delegations and presentations, and we will welcome Meghan Cowan from Audited and Berlis LLP, Integrity Commissioner, and I will turn it over to Mr. Graves for introduction, please.
Sure. As Council's Commissioner, and Council may utilize that individual when they have questions and concerns to make sure they're in compliance with the Code of Conduct, and of course, they are there to handle any complaints that we receive. We have a few reports on tonight from our Integrity Commissioner, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Meghan to give those reports.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Meghan Cowan. I'm a partner at Audited Berlis LLP. My colleague and partner, John Mascarin of Audited Berlis LLP, was appointed as the Interim Integrity Commissioner for the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll, pursuant to subsection 223.3 sub 1 of the Municipal Act of 2001 on June 24th, 2024. And that appointment was extended to September 9th, 2024. Mr. Mascarin delegated his powers and duties to Code of Conduct's Complaints 2024-01, 02, and 03 to me in writing, pursuant to the authority under subsection 223.3 sub 3 of the Municipal Act. As such, we have the jurisdiction to review complaints against members of council made pursuant to the Code of Conduct for members of council and members of council's boards and advisory committees, bylaw 21-5147, which I will refer to this evening as the Code of Conduct. As Integrity Commissioner, we act as an impartial, neutral, and objective investigator. We neither seek to shelter members from culpability, from wrongdoing, nor attempt to punish them when the objective facts do not support a finding of contravention. We do not work for the municipality. We are an independent statutory officer of the municipality pursuant to subsection 223.3 of the Municipal Act. It is in this capacity that I appear before you this evening to present our investigative reports on 3 separate complaints filed against Councillor Khadija Haliru under the town's Code of Conduct. This evening, I will provide detailed presentations with respect to the 3 investigative reports. I will begin with Report 2024-01 and provide a summary of our findings and recommendations. At that point, I would submit to you that it would be appropriate from Council to hear the submissions of the respondent councillor as to our recommendations with respect to Report 2024-01. I will then turn to Report 2024-02 and provide a brief summary of our findings for informational purposes. I will then turn to Report 2024-03 and provide a summary of our findings and recommendations in that matter. At that point, I would submit to you that it would be appropriate for Council to hear the submissions of the respondent councillor as to our recommendations in Report 2024-03. Our investigations were conducted in accordance with our authority as Integrity Commissioner under the Municipal Act, the town's Code of Conduct, and the processes and procedures outlined therein. Mr. Chair, without further ado, I will proceed to address Report 2024-01.
Please proceed.
Thank you. The impetus for complaint 2024-01 occurred via a series of online posts and comments made by Councillor Haliru on Facebook. Councillor Haliru's Facebook page is styled as a politician page entitled Khadija Haliru, Ingersoll Town Council. Briefly, the comments and posts issued consisted of a poster advertising a demand for ceasefire now protest for Palestine event on March 30th, 2024, a series of comments on the protest, including comments about a motion brought forward by the councillor in December 2023, which was deemed to be out of order under the town's procedural bylaw, as the subject matter was deemed to be outside of the town's jurisdiction. And in one Facebook comment on the issue, the councillor wrote of being silenced by the council when I proposed a motion for ceasefire. The details of these social media posts are set out at length in Report 01 at the preliminary sections at pages 2, 3, and 4. I will not quote from them this evening, but that is a reference point. A formal complaint was filed with the town's former Integrity Commissioner on April 11th and alleged that Councillor Haliru's Facebook posts and comments contravene Section 5 of the Code. Section 5 of the Code provides in part that members of Council shall show respect for the decision-making process of Council and that decisions of Council shall be conveyed accurately, even if members disagree with the decision of Council. Likewise, Section 5 also provides that members of Council shall not use their office to promote events other than town-sponsored events. The complaint also raises concerns that the conduct issued contravene the guidelines and principles set out in the Code, the mandate of the town's Diversity and Inclusion Committee, and the town's accountability policy. We address these allegations at page 6 and 7 of our report. As the principles and guidelines and mandate cited are not operative provisions, they do not constitute freestanding obligations that can be independently enforced. I'll now turn to our process briefly as the investigative process. We wrote to the councillor on July 26, 2024, pursuant to subsection 23.1 of the Code, and provided the complaint form in full, as well as a summary of the complaint and the Code of Conduct provisions in issue. The councillor provided written submissions in response on August 9th, 2024, as well as emails in support of her submissions. The councillor's submissions were in turn provided to the complainant, who subsequently provided detailed responding submissions and supporting documents. Our investigation was carried out in a procedurally fair process and accorded with the requirements of procedural fairness and natural justice. Due process was accorded to both the councillor and the complainant, as we carefully reviewed and considered all submissions and materials provided by the complainant and Councillor Haliru. Our process is set out in detail in our report at pages 6 to 9. We then proceeded to finalize our report and provided the councillor with a draft of our final report on October 10th, 2024. The draft of our final report contained our preliminary findings and recommendations as required by the town's code of conduct. The councillor was given an opportunity to provide submissions on our findings and recommendations. The councillor requested and received 2 extensions to provide submissions to us, and ultimately provided written submissions on our draft report on October 28th, 2024, which we carefully considered. Our final report was submitted to the City Clerk on November 6, 2024. A copy of the final report was not provided to any single member of council, including the mayor, or to any other person, including the complainant, in advance, as this would have contravened our legislative obligations as Integrity Commissioner. Our final report speaks for itself. Very briefly, we found that the councillor's Facebook comments and posts about the protest contravened Section 5 of the Code, and that the councillor promoted an event that was not sponsored by the town. Likewise, we found that the councillor's Facebook comments and posts about the December 11th, 2023 ceasefire motion contravened Section 5 of the Code, as it conveyed that council had acted inappropriately. The councillor, in her responding to submissions, pointed to the fact that she is a member of a visible minority group and sought to respond to members of the community by ensuring that the protest was conducted safely and peacefully. She also pointed to her commitment to free speech and that her intent was not to promote harm or disrespect to any one group. The councillor's submissions are provided in part at page 7 and 8 of our report. Now, we addressed some of these submissions in our report. As you'll see, members of council, once elected, no longer represent a particular group or interest. They become part of the governing body recognized by the Municipal Act and therefore have obligations to a wider audience. We also acknowledge the councillor's right to freedom of expression. As we have set out in our report, the councillor can be onside her charter rights, but still offside the code of conduct. Given tensions over the conflict in the Middle East, we also want to be very clear that we have not concluded that the councillor breached the code by virtue of her involvement or support in one cause over the other. The contraventions we found were very specific and found in relation to the nature of the councillor's comments, identifying herself as a member of council. 1, in making comments that were critical of a decision of council, and 2, in promoting an event that was not sponsored by the town. I'll now turn to the recommendation section of our report and briefly provide some comments on process. I'd first like to draw council's attention to the decision in the Divisional Court's decision in Asselay and Hawkesbury Town, which provides, and I quote, "If the Integrity Commissioner concludes that a council member has contravened the Code of Conduct, the municipality has no power to contest or question that conclusion. Its only power is to determine whether a penalty should be imposed, and if so, to issue a reprimand or suspend the member's remuneration for up to 90 days. Likewise, I turn council's attention to the decision of the Divisional Court in Jonker and West Lincoln Township at paragraphs 25 and 32. And I quote, "It is the Integrity Commissioner who is given the power to determine whether a member of council has violated the municipality's code of conduct. As the applicant concedes, council is bound by the Integrity Commissioner's findings with respect to whether there has been misconduct. If the Integrity Commissioner has made no finding of misconduct, council has no further role. If the Integrity Commissioner makes a finding of misconduct, council may make a decision as to which penalty to impose. Council is bound by the Integrity Commissioner's findings as to misconduct. Therefore, in exercising its jurisdiction as to penalty, it cannot do so in such a way that would seek to set aside the Integrity Commissioner's findings on the question as to whether misconduct had occurred." I note that the jurisdiction of an integrity commissioner is very limited. We do not determine whether federal or provincial laws have been contravened. Our jurisdiction is limited to the interpretation and application of the municipality's code of conduct. Council is the decision-making body for the municipality and is entrusted with enforcing its code of conduct. As noted, we have investigated the complaint and have produced a report that details our findings and conclusion. We have done so in accordance with our authority, mandate, and jurisdiction, with an adherence to procedural fairness to all parties, including the councillor and the complainant who exercise their right to file a formal complaint. Subsection 223.4 sub 5 of the Municipal Act and the Code authorize the Integrity Commissioner to recommend and council to impose the following penalties on a member who has been found to have contravened the code. A reprimand, and B, a suspension of remuneration paid to the member for up to 90 days. There's no specific criteria set out in the Municipal Act for the imposition of penalties. Many professional and regulatory bodies have customarily relied upon an established list of purposes for penalties imposed for breaches of ethical codes, which integrity commissioners have often adopted to assess appropriate penalties. These purposes include specific deterrence, general deterrence, rehabilitation, and maintaining public confidence. As a penalty for the above contraventions, we recommend that council suspend the councillor's remuneration for a period of 5 days. This recommended penalty would act to both denounce the councillor's conduct and provide specific deterrence to her from engaging in similar conduct in the future. It would also, in our view, maintain public confidence in the town's code and ethical framework. We also recommend, expressly as a corrective action and not as a penalty, that the councillor attend training on the use of social media in the municipal context, given that this complaint and complaint 2024-03 pertain to her use of social media as a member of council. Such training would, in our view, also be beneficial for all members of council. Council can either accept our recommendations in whole or in part, amend them, or reject them outright. This concludes our presentation with respect to the investigation report to 2024-01. I remind Council of the case law I've cited that clearly and unequivocally provides that a council has no power to contest or question the factual findings of an integrity commissioner. The only matter before council and the only decision that council is authorized to make relates to the recommendations in report 2024-01. I would submit to council that this is the appropriate time for Councillor Haliru to address the recommendations in the report. Thank you.
Councillor Haliru.
Thank you. Thank you, Meghan. Nice to meet you finally. Just so everyone is clear, I accept your Integrity Commissioner's report. I do respect the process that you took, and I feel like I was heard, I was given due process. However, I am confused as to the fact that there was no social policy by the town for my use of the social media, in which I am surprised to actually see a report against. And I've fulfilled that obligation by explaining that that was my original page. Just to the public to know that when I say I represent a part of a community, in the sense that there's diversity in this community, I represent every one of those diverse groups. And at any time, if those groups call on to me, I will try to respond in a way that I understand what they're saying. If I felt like a group was meant to basically override another group, that was not the intention. And I think sometimes context is needed in understanding behavior and consequences. So for those that are in the public that felt, as a Muslim, I do not have any prejudice against Jews. In fact, my religion teaches us that we are the most welcoming and receptive of Jews. We open our doors and homes to Jews in our history. So there is a narrative out there that contradicts what actually happened, when in fact my social media page is meant to help dissuade people from thinking that it's going the other way. So I think there's a lot of cultural nuances here. There's a lot of again, perspectives that were misunderstood. And I just want to make it clear to the public, that there is no one group that is more important than the other. Everyone deserves a voice, which is why this certain group certainly didn't feel different to me. I've represented groups, I've marched for Indigenous, I've done everything from South African marches to Bosnia-Herzegovina wars before I even came to this country. I recognize when groups are marching for civil rights and other things. And so I feel like in the context of being in a community that is not used to that, it was interpreted in a different way. And I just really feel like for the public, I want them to understand that me saying what I say on social media is more to educate than to incite anything, which is why most of the clips that I see on the report are captured from discussions on social media that are not on my page. Most of it is in answering with my page to give people the sense that I'm taking responsibility to dissuade them from inciting, there was a post that we basically, I know you captured, that was trying to insinuate that there was something out there that wasn't fair. And I had to address that. And I had to invite people to, come out and get educated. So for me to be deliberately trying to kind of calm the situation, and this report seems to have presented me as someone who was trying to stoke anti-Semitism or trying to rally the community against each other, is absolutely not the case. And so I just wanted to make that clear. With all due respect, thank you for your time in taking this particular case and understanding to the extent that you do, but I feel like there's still a lot that I feel was missed because of the context and the cultural nuances. Thank you.
Thank you, and I will turn it back over to Integrity Commissioner Cowan to talk about next steps.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, I have no further comments at this time. As I set out, it's now up to Council to proceed to make a determination solely with respect to the recommendations as I set out. As I went through the process, it's not a chance to question the conclusion or finding of my report, but there are the recommendations I've put to Council. I can specifically draw Council's attention to those if you wish. They're set out at page 10 of my report, starting at paragraph 52 and going to paragraph 59.
Thank you very much. Okay, so this time I will read a motion and we will see if there's a mover and a seconder for that. If there is, then we will move forward with debate on that motion. If there's not, then we'll have another motion put through. That the Council of the Town of Ingersoll receive Integrity Commissioner report of Code of Conduct Complaint 2024-01, and that a penalty for the contravention of Section 5 of the bylaw 21-51-47 Code of Conduct, Council Code of Conduct, Councillor Haliru's remuneration be suspended for a period of 5 days as recommended by the Integrity Commissioner. Is there a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Van Kooten-Bossens. Seconder for the motion. Councillor Hughes. Discussion. Councillor Van Kooten-Bossens.
So in regards to the recommendation that has been given by our Integrity Commissioner, I feel that they are much more qualified to make those recommendations than what I would ever be. I'm not a lawyer. I've not done any integrity commissions. And what they have come back with, to me, is what we should be following. I think they've taken into consideration everything that they were supposed to. And I would like to uphold the fact that they're trying to maintain that public confidence in the town's code of conduct as well. So I very much support the motion that has been put forward, and we'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Further discussion? Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you. I echo the sentiments that Councillor Van Kooten-Bossens brought forward. And one other item regarding the lack of social media policy. I believe our regular code of conduct gives clear guidance as to what, as a counselor, we're able to do. And the fact that it doesn't matter what medium that we use to promote that, it's still a breach. We still have to follow that code of conduct. We can say it or we can't say it. We can publish it, whether we do a blog, whether we do a Twitter, X, or whether it's Facebook or even Instagram. We're still in contravention to the code of conduct if we conduct ourselves that way. So the fact that we don't have a social media policy, I don't think we need to develop one because it's already there in the code of conduct.
Councillor Haliru.
Thank you. Again, this is a diversity issue. So for me, I have a Facebook group that I've had for over 25 years. And when I ran for the town of Ingersoll, I'm not going to take my 5,000 followers and family members and friends from when I was born to divulge everything that is happening to the town of Ingersoll. So as a unique candidate, I had to create a separate Facebook page with due respect to the members of the town so that I could communicate with my constituents that way. So when I say there's no social media policy, I wasn't told that I couldn't do that, A, and I wasn't told that because I was doing that I couldn't speak to my freedom of speech. When the mayor decided to report this, he indeed changed his personal page and put mayor in front of it, just so it could sound like it was now an official page.
Sorry, point of
For
order.
me, excuse me.
I am
that's
not
what-
the complainant on this file.
Please do not interrupt me. I'm trying to answer this question.
I am
and
the
did not-
chair, and I am speaking. I've told you that that is inaccurate information, that I have not the complainant on this. I am clarifying that. You may continue.
All right. So basically, I did not have the privilege of using my Facebook page for my town business. And I was never told, and like I said, I was speaking on behalf of people and on behalf of what I stood for legally. I called the police. I investigated that this was allowed. The clerk assured me there was nothing wrong with that. I did my due diligence. There was no one that ever reached out to say I wasn't allowed to post something that I posted. Except even when I made a mistake, I actually got called to say, oh, I made a mistake, and I posted something that was meant for a personal page on my business page, and I actually corrected that. So for me to sit here and say that there was no policy that guided me, I'm repeating that there was no policy that guided me because I didn't think I did anything wrong. It is now said that because I'm speaking to a community or I'm speaking of a community, it was received in a different way, and I'm saying that I acknowledge that. But to say that because I said social media policy didn't necessarily cover for me, I'm just trying to make sure that you all understand. You could have all used your personal pages to do your campaigning. I wasn't in the same position to do that. And again, it is not until you understand what some people have to actually tweak in their lives to conform that you understand what we're talking about. So that is the reason that I'm saying what I'm saying, not because I'm condoning that I made a mistake or not, but the fact that I had to maintain, or that I'm the only one that maintains a separate Facebook page, is simply because of that. And when I put my phone number on there and I put the town website on there, it's just so that people can understand that this is my page where I'm representing my community. So there's a lot of cultural nuances again here that make people feel a certain way. You may think I'm trying to uphold a certain standard that is not already a set standard, but I'm telling you, just in your considerations now, that you may be overthinking this. And this is just no way for me to show that I'm above the law or that I'm doing something that is inappropriate and I know it. I was just, in my mind, acting in my personal capacity, just using my Facebook page that was specific to Ingersoll, and I hope that clarifies.
Councillor Hudson, please.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. There was just one thing you said, Councillor Haliru, that this was a diversity issue. I completely disagree with you. This was a code of conduct issue, not related to diversity. You also said you didn't think you did anything wrong. That's fine, but now you have found out differently that yes, there was a code of conduct issue. So to say that we're not informed or we may be overthinking this, I'd somewhat take that as an insult.
I'm sorry if you do.
Sorry, you
That's
do not have the floor. Councillor Haliru, you have, sorry, Councillor Hudson, you have the floor.
Okay. I'm just trying to clarify.
I just want you to understand that, yeah, I get that you didn't think you did anything wrong, but now you're actually being told, yes, there was a code of conduct, misrepresentation, whatever you want to call it, it wasn't okay. None of us can do that. It's not that, it's just that you did do it.
Can I respond?
I'm going to speak first, as our procedure bylaw allows one term per council, but I will, at the leave of council, allow for extension of that. But I am supporting the motion on the floor because I do feel that a financial penalty is necessary due to the fact that I have not heard the councillor articulate true understanding of the issue of why there was an issue. And unfortunately, I will be honest, I don't think it has anything to do with diversity or the fact that there was a protest or anything like that. It has everything to do that their code of conduct states about Section 5. And that is why I'm in favor of this until there is recognition of Section 5 and what that means. Then that is a code of conduct violation, and therefore there needs to be some sort of penalty for that. And I severely hope that this is the end of it. This is not something that council want to do lightly, but we have a code of conduct. It has to be respected by all members of council. It was found that it wasn't, and that this is a 5% penalty of the maximum penalty. So I think that it is fair. It was within reason, and I can support it. Is council approval of having the council speak more than once as procedure by law? I'm seeing yes. Go ahead, Councillor Haliru, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify, Councillor Hudson. I already accepted that I was in the wrong. I've accepted the Integrity Commissioner's report. When he mentioned this policy situation, I went back to what I thought at the time. And I reasoned that it's a diversity issue that didn't allow me to use my personal page, not that this is a diversity issue. So I hope that when I speak, you guys can understand clearly. The reason I set up the page was I didn't want to put Ingersoll, posting everything Ingersoll to the whole world, because I have a whole following from the other side of the world. That's the diversity part that I was explaining. I already started by saying that I respected this decision. I already respected the fact that I was given due process, and I simply was responding to each of you as your concerns came. When you say, when I mentioned social policy and council use did not understand why I used that, I explained because I didn't have any guidance to see whether I could use that as a personal page or it was considered a professional or official page. I'm explaining to you guys now the thinking behind my actions. I'm not saying that I didn't acknowledge that that has been already addressed. So for me to sit here and try to explain to you guys again, trying to make you understand where I was coming from and how now I see that this is how it's been interpreted, and you think it's because I'm being defiant, that's absolutely not right. Because I'm just simply trying to explain to you why I think if it wasn't a diversity issue for me, I would be someone who had every peer from this country and I didn't have to share my intimate town knowledge with the rest of the world. That is the reason I had a separate page. There's no reason for me to have a separate page because I also saw you all use your voting, your personal pages for your campaigning. I didn't do that. And even for those that did that, they canceled it and then went back to their personal pages. I don't have that privilege because I'll be divulging everything Ingersoll to my whole community, which is why I said it was a diversity issue. Sometimes you don't understand why somebody's done something, and I'm explaining it now to help with that perspective. Does not discount the fact that this decision has come today, that this was something that you saw was wrong. I'm just calling out the fact that we didn't have guidance. I never was called out to say you shouldn't use your page separately, you should close this page. We got guidance for everything else, but I didn't get guidance, and you have to acknowledge that. And that's all I'm saying. So I'm not saying anything else other than trying to explain what you mean. So I really don't want you guys to think that I'm adding more fire to the, putting more fuel to the fire. I'm just simply trying to make all of you understand where I was coming from, because in my mind, when I was doing this, I didn't think I was actually causing a problem. I was just acting because I needed to communicate to the community. And the Facebook page I was using was just from the letters that we received and everything. I was just working through the official page of what I was doing as a counselor. Right or wrong, we're learning every day, and we're no bigger than anyone to learn. But the fact that I'm trying hard to communicate, I'm trying hard to assimilate, I'm trying hard to integrate with you guys, and you guys are always looking at this as if I'm maybe adding more defiance is actually the problem I have. If only you can just see me for being human. Like, anyone would think that I'm already under a lot of stress, and I'm trying to still give you guys the answers to your questions and explain this. I think it's just only fair that you just kind of tone it down in your minds and think about it being Khadija explaining herself on how she came to this point, rather than just think about it being, because you're trying to hit me below the belt, and I know what it feels like, but having someone start over and over and over, and everywhere we go, we start over, and we try to contribute, and we try to do our best. And even in the council pay that I get, I use it again to try to give back and everything. If that's how you want to get back at me, that's fine. We're using the resources of the town to get back at each other just because we don't understand where we're coming from. There was not enough debate to understand where I was coming from in the first place. And that's another story. But Integrity Commissioner has seen things in her own, investigation and has come with the result. I never disputed that result. I'm just trying to explain to you, as I've been given the rights under the law to do, to explain to you all so that you can consider that. And at the end of the day, it's okay, whatever judgment you decide.
Deputy Mayor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. I can appreciate everything that you said, and that we are doing our best to understand each other in a role that doesn't come with a job description, does not come with training like we might be used to in any other job. So I can appreciate all of that. But at the end of the day, I'm supporting the recommendation on the very simple fact of speaking against council. That is all it comes down to for me. We are allowed to use social media. We are allowed to attend events. That's not what I take issue with. It's the issue that we are a team, and we have to act as a team and respect the decisions that we make as a team. That's a pretty standard expectation of a municipality council, of a board, of any other organization that acts on consensus. So on that and that alone, not social media, not a policy, not diversity, on that alone, I'll be supporting the recommendations. And if I may, I'll move to call the question, please. So it just needs a second.
Thank you. You've brought up that you want us to see you as human. I see you as human. I don't see color. When I was elected as a councillor, I was elected to represent every member of this town, not just a certain diverse group, not just blacks, whites, whatever your color, creed, whatever it may be, whatever your denomination, whatever your faith is, I am here to represent everyone. And the code of conduct says that you have to do that. You are elected. You're not just elected to.
Councillor, can I just ask that
Yep.
this will eventually speak to the motion?
Yeah, sorry, my apologies. We represent everybody as a councillor, and the code of conduct has been disregarded. I understand that you now accept that, and I understand that, but I have to still support the motion that is before us for the suspension of 5 days, and I will leave it at that.
Thank you. Further, I believe everybody's spoken on this. I'll call the question. that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive Integrity Commissioner Report of Code of Conduct Complaint 2024-01, and that as a penalty for the contravention of Section 5 of the bylaw 21-5147, Council Code of Conduct, Councillor Haliru's remuneration be suspended for a period of 5 days as recommended by the Integrity Commissioner. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. At this time, I'll be giving up the chair as the 2024-02 and 2024-03 were both filed by myself in the issue of procedural, in the interest of procedural fairness. I will not be participating in the as chair or as a councillor in the debate, and I will gladly turn that over to my council colleagues and the deputy mayor for the chair, please.
Thank you. So we'll turn to the report two. Integrity Commissioner, if you wanted to proceed with the presentation on that report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The incidents that gave rise to complaint 2024-02 occurred during a regular meeting of council on Monday, April 8th, 2024. A formal complaint was filed with the town's prior Integrity Commissioner and alleged that Councillor Haliru made inappropriate statements at the meeting of council that contravened Sections 7 and 13 of the Code of Conduct. In particular, the complaint alleged that the councillor's comments at the meeting failed to respect town staff, broke decorum, and made unsubstantiated and inappropriate comments about the mayor. Given that the mayor issued an official statement about the meeting on April 12, 2024, in which he identified that he had filed a formal code of conduct complaint, we have identified him as the complainant in this matter. We received the complaint in late June and wrote to the councillor on July 26, 2024, pursuant to Section 23 sub 1 of the code. At that time, we provided the complaint form in full, as well as a summary of the complaint and code provisions in issue. The councillor provided written submissions in response on August 9, 2024, as well as emails in support of her submissions. The councillor's submissions were in turn provided to the complainant, who subsequently provided detailed responding submissions and supporting documents. We then proceeded to finalize our report and provided the councillor with the draft of our final report on October 10, 2024. The draft of our final report contained our preliminary findings, and the councillor was given an opportunity to provide submissions to us on our findings and any factual inaccuracies. The councillor provided submissions to us on October 28, 2024. Our final report was submitted to the clerk on November 6th and speaks for itself. By way of a very brief summary, we found no contravention of the Code of Conduct. With respect to our jurisdiction, we noted that many integrity commissioners have declined to exercise discretion over comments made or actions taken by members of council during meetings. The underlying rationale for this is that a chair must be afforded a significant degree of autonomy to ensure that their meetings are conducted in accordance with procedural bylaw requirements. While we, as Integrity Commissioner, have, on limited occasions, reviewed conduct at a meeting, it was such conduct that was truly egregious or glaringly outrageous. In this instance, we ultimately found that the conduct in question on April 8th meeting did not rise to such a level as to merit our investigation or the exercise of our authority. We also noted that the complainant, as chair of the meeting of April 8th, appropriately addressed the councillor's comments about the staff report in question by directly addressing the matter. We therefore ultimately found that the councillor's conduct did not rise to such a level as to distract from the business of council. Given that we have found no contravention of the Code of Conduct, there is no authority pursuant to the Municipal Act for council to impose a penalty. We again draw council's attention to the Divisional Court in Asselay and Hawkesbury Town, which sets out that a council has no power to contest or question factual findings of an integrity commissioner. Our report is therefore merely for informational purposes. Council has no authority to question or substitute our findings. Madam Chair, those are my comments with respect to that report. I will pause now, subject to any comments that you may have, and am at your call.
Thank you. In this case, the Integrity Commissioner has made no finding of misconduct, so we have no further role. I'll read the motion and ask for a mover and a seconder. That the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive Integrity Commissioner report on the Code of Conduct Complaint 2024-02. A mover? Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens. Seconder? Councillor Hughes. I don't believe there's much need for debate, but if there are any comments or questions, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. If we could move to the final report 3, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you. The incident that gave rise to complaint 2024-03 occurred via an online post made by Councillor Haliru on Facebook on April 8, 2024. Councillor Haliru's Facebook page is styled as a politician page and titled Kitija Haliru - Ingersoll Town Council. The post in question is reproduced in full on page 2 of our report. A formal complaint was filed with the prior Integrity Commissioner on April 11th and alleged that the councillor's Facebook post contravened Section 5 of the Code. Section 5 of the Code provides in part that members of Council shall show respect for the decision-making process of Council and that decisions of Council shall be conveyed accurately, even if members disagree with the decision of Council. We wrote to the councillor on July 26, pursuant to Section 23 sub 1 of the Code, and provided the complaint form in full, as well as a summary of the complaint and the Code provisions in issue. The councillor provided written submissions in response on August 9th, 2024, as well as emails in support of her submissions. The councillor's submissions were in turn provided to the complainant, who subsequently provided detailed responding submissions and supporting documents. Our investigation was carried out in a procedurally fair process and accorded with the requirements of procedural fairness and natural justice. Due process was afforded to both the councillor and the complainant as we carefully reviewed and considered all submissions and materials provided by the complainant and Councillor Haliru. Our process is set out in detail in our report at pages 4 to 6. We then proceeded to finalize our report and provided the councillor with a draft of our final report on October 10th, 2024. The draft of our final report contained our preliminary findings and recommendations as required by the town's Code of Conduct. The councillor was given an opportunity to provide submissions to us on our findings and recommendations. The councillor requested and received 2 extensions to provide submissions to us, and she ultimately provided written submissions on our draft report on October 28, 2024, which we carefully considered. Our final report was submitted to the clerk on November 6, 2024. A copy of the final report was not provided to any single member of council, including the mayor, or to any other person, including the complainant, in advance, as this would have contravened our legislative obligations as Integrity Commissioner. Our final report speaks for itself. By way of very brief summary, we found that the councillor's Facebook post contravened Section 5 of the Code by inaccurately depicting actions of council at its meeting of April 8, 2024, and in particular by suggesting that councillor did not understand the councillor's prior motion, insinuated that she was silenced by council, and made vague references to council being biased. The councillor in her responding submissions pointed to the fact that she is a member of a visible minority group and sought to make all minority and underrepresented voices feel seen and valued. In her initial submissions, the councillor also stated that her actions were guided by the principle of freedom of expression, as guaranteed by the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, in relation to the subsequent social media posts she had made. In our view, the Facebook post cannot also be shielded by the protection of freedom of political expression or opinion. In reviewing political speech, we take guidance from the Ontario Superior Court of Justice that acknowledges that municipal codes of conduct must be interpreted in a manner consistent with freedom of expression. However, we note that there are reasonable limits imposed on such expression, as members of council are expected to act with integrity and in accordance with an established code of conduct. In short, the councillor can be outside her charter rights but still be in violation of the code. We also note that newer members of council face steep learning curves as they become familiar with applicable legislative and procedural requirements that apply to them and to municipal governance functions. While members cannot be expected to know all of the rules, procedures, and policies immediately upon being elected, they owe a duty to their constituents and to each other to educate themselves and seek advice when they are certain. I will note that our role as Integrity Commissioner also involves the provision of advice to members of council should they so request that advice in writing. For these reasons, we find that the councillor contravened Section 5 of the Code when she made the Facebook post critical of council's conduct at the meeting of council on April 8th. Given our determination that the councillor Haliru has contravened the Code of Conduct, we recommend that council impose as a penalty the suspension of the councillor's remuneration for a period of 5 days. The penalty we have recommended would act to both denounce the councillor's conduct and to provide specific deterrence to her from engaging in similar conduct in the future. It would also, in our view, maintain public confidence in the town's code and ethical framework. We also recommend expressly as a corrective action and not as a penalty that the councillor attend training on the use of social media in the municipal context, given that both this complaint and the previous complaint 2024-01 pertain to her use of social media identifying herself as a member of council. Such training, in our view, would also be beneficial for all members of council. Council can adopt our recommendation in whole or in part, amend it, or reject it outright. This concludes our presentation with respect to Investigative Report 2024-03. Once again, I remind Council that as the case law I quoted earlier clearly and unequivocally provides, Council has no power to contest or question the factual findings of an Integrity Commissioner. The only matter before Council and the only decision that Council is authorized to make relates to the recommendations in Report 2024-03. Once again, I would submit to Council that this is an appropriate time for Councillor Haliru to address the recommendations in the report. I will remain present to answer any questions that members may have, after which my reporting for this evening will continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Haliru, do you wish to speak?
Yes, please. Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, so I again respect your decision and your penalty recommendations. However, I wish in due course of doing this business and this business of representing people, that when we have, like you said, rightfully so, new councillors, if we act in due cause of, I feel like we need to understand that when we go to the extent of using the tools of government to reprimand each other without consciously acknowledging what you just stated, then we are actually, in my opinion, sometimes going above and beyond just to get at people. I would have loved a case where there was a warning. I have investigated and researched to see how these processes have played out in different parts of, the country, and I realized that people do get warnings when something happens. I never got a warning. I'm new. I'm different. Whether you like it or not, it hurts or it doesn't hurt. I know what I go through. I know how I feel when I walk in every room and I'm the only person that looks like me. It is already a courageous thing for me to do what I do. And I don't need anybody to pump me up or pull me down. I already feel it. But when I have the courage and I have the confidence to do what I do, the best thing you can do is to call people out on when they do something that you feel like they haven't done before or they have made a mistake doing. People have been swearing at council meetings across this country. People have been shouting and being violent, and they're warned before they ever report it to an integrity commissioner. For my mayor to take it 6 years or 8 years experience on council and take me, someone who was just a rookie councillor, straight to the doghouse, for me, is something I need you all to consider. I came on here, like I said, ready to assimilate, ready to integrate. I invited everybody else, to different things in my life, just so you could get to know me. Because as people of, I'm gonna keep saying this, whether you like to hear it or not. I know sometimes it makes you feel like I'm maybe using the word diversity too much, but there is a conscious effort for us to try to make friends and invite you into our lives so that when things are happening, you actually have the ability to call us out or to share your experience or to help out. But I did that. I came here. If I come in here sometimes and I don't say anything, sometimes I don't get even a hi. But I've built that rapport now with people because I know that I have to do that. I walk in a room, I have to say hi to people before they say hi to me. So I just want you guys to understand the context in which I operate here. So when I invited you guys all to my birthday, different 2 times that everybody turned me down, I wanted you guys to understand who I was at the humanity level. And I use that word humanity because when we are confident people take us for granted sometimes and forget that we're soft on the inside and human too. I just make a mistake. And the first thing you want to do is send me to the doghouse, send me to the Integrity Commissioner's office, spend all this money just so I can be reprimanded for 5 days. I am sorry that I've had to drag Ingersoll through this. I'm sorry that I've had the press call me to ask me to respond to the mayor's complaint for something they feel like they were confused. I'm sorry that I've spent the last 6 months being depressed silently just because I feel I've let the people of Ingersoll down. I'm sorry that no one called me here to ask how was I doing in this whole 6 months. I deliberately didn't talk to any of my council members. And when I say I'm human, and I'm trying to let my humanity down now for you guys, because sometimes it's hard to understand what people are going through and what people are feeling. It's easy to just see the person feel so happy and feel so confident, and you want to call that person out. You want to clip their wings. You want to hit them where it hurts most, but to what expense to the taxpayer? And that's the question I want to ask. What extent do you have to go just to prove yourself? Because you can't take someone just argue with you or debate you,
Councillor Haliru.
which is what I was trying to do.
Councillor
So
Haliru.
with all due respect, I rest my case. I just wanted to say,
My intent was not to stop you from speaking. It was to ask you to stay on the task of discussing the recommendations.
Well, the
If you
recommendations-
have nothing
yeah.
further on that, I'll move to other councillors for
yes,
comment.
the recommendation is what I'm discussing. The result of the recommendation is hitting someone where it hurts the most, which is why I'm trying to explain what it means beyond hitting someone in the belt, hoping that you can actually get to the point where you consider talking and holding people's hands and talking people through and making them realize their mistakes, just like we do every day with our neighbors. So yes, the intent was to hit me below the belt. The intent was to hit me financially. The intent behind this complaint was to get me a recommendation that was going to make it painful.
Okay, Councillor Haliru, we're going
That's
to
all I
move
have to
to asking for, I'm going to put the
Yeah.
motion on the floor and ask for a mover or seconder, and you'll have other opportunity to speak specifically to that motion. So that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive Integrity Commissioner report on the Code of Conduct Complaint 2024-03, and that a penalty for the contravention of Section 5 of Bylaw 21-5147, Council Code of Conduct, Councillor Haliru's remuneration be suspended for a period of 5 days as recommended by the Integrity Commissioner. So I'll need a mover for the motion, please. Councillor Van Kooten-Bossens, thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Hudson? Thank you. So we'll move on to the debate portion of the motion. And as was the case with Report 01, typically you can only speak once, but if everyone has done so and council's agreeable to allowing Councillor Haliru or others to speak twice, we'll discuss it at that time. But I do ask that you don't repeat comments you've already made or return to issues that you've already had the opportunity to speak on. Does anyone want to make comment on the motion on the floor? No comment? Well, with that, we can call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. I'm wondering if someone may want to move a 10-minute recess. Councillor Van Kooten-Bossens. Sorry, seconder, Councillor Hudson. So we'll return at 7:13, please.
Madam Chair, if I might just interject briefly.
Of course.
I just wanted to thank you all for the opportunity to present tonight. If that concludes the section of my report, I will sign off from the meeting. I'd just like to reiterate the role of the Integrity Commissioner. We are available for an advice-giving function. If members of council have any questions, they may reach out to us in writing, seeking advice on their ethical obligations, and we will provide advice in writing on those ethical obligations under the Code of Conduct. We also, as Integrity Commissioner, routinely conduct training sessions for council on the code of conduct and any ethical obligations relating to that, and are certainly available to the town should it require or wish to do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we'll return now at 7:14.
you very much. We'll call the meeting back to order, and I'll call on Councillor Van Kootenbos to take us into the Committee of Adjustment, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilson, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll go into a Committee of Adjustment meeting to consider the following minor variance application: A-05-24, 46 Bell Street, and the applicant is Emily Darling.
Thank you very much. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We're now in the Committee of Adjustment, and so we will be doing a public meeting. I now declare the Committee of Adjustment meeting to be open. The Committee of Adjustment is authorized to consider applications for minor variances for the Town of Ingersoll zoning bylaw under Section 45 of the Planning Act. This meeting is being constituted as a public meeting under Section 45(6) of the Act for the purposes of receiving public input on the requested minor variance, which will be considered this evening by the planner and the Committee of Adjustment before a decision on the application is made at a future meeting of the committee. We ask anyone in attendance at this meeting who wishes to receive the committee's decision on the application being considered to sign the attendance record on the table outside of council chambers. Anyone attending virtually is to submit a written request to the town clerk at danielle.richard@ingersoll.ca. Does any member of the Committee of Adjustment have a conflict of interest on the application being heard this evening? Seeing none. The application to be heard concerns A-05-24 46 Bell Street, applicant Emily Darling. Has the Secretary of the Committee received any additional correspondence on the application that is not noted on the agenda?
I have not.
Thank you. I now request the planner, Heather Sinclair, to provide an overview of the application and an explanation of the requested minor variance. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, committee. So tonight we have an application on the agenda that's been submitted to permit an addition to an existing non-complying residential accessory structure in the rear yard of the subject lands. Specifically, it is proposed that a 6.8 square meter or 73 square foot addition will be constructed to the rear of the existing detached garage, which is approximately 13.6 square meters or 147 square feet in size, resulting in a total structure size of 20 square meters or 220 square feet. The detached garage was constructed in approximately 1950, according to assessment records on file, and has an existing interior side yard setback of 0.5 meters or 1.6 feet to the westerly interior lot line, whereas the town zoning bylaw requires an interior side yard setback of 1.2 meters or 3.9 feet. And the applicants are requesting this relief now to facilitate the proposed addition with a consistent setback to the existing building. So as shown on plate 1, the subject property is located on the north side of Bell Street between Margaret Street and John Street and is approximately 952 square meters or 10,255 square feet in size, with 12 meters or 40 feet of frontage on Bell Street and approximately 80 meters of depth. The subject lands contain an existing single detached dwelling built in approximately 1900 and that's located within the southeast portion of the subject lands. And in that portion, where the dwelling is located, those lands are regulated by the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority due to the presence of the Murphy Drain. The majority of the property is designated as low-density residential in the official plan, while a small portion in that southeast corner is designated as open space. No new development is proposed within this open-spaced area. The subject lands are zoned as R2, residential type 2, in the town zoning bylaw, which permits a limited number of low-density residential uses, including single detached and semi-detached dwellings. And the R2 zone does permit the establishment of detached residential accessory structures in accordance with the provisions of Table 5.114, which permits a detached residential accessory structure to a maximum lot coverage of 100 square meters or 1,076 square feet, or 10% of lot area, whichever is lesser, and requires that minimum interior side yard setback of 1.2 meters or 3.9 feet. And it is also noted, as I stated, that the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority regulates that portion of the subject property, so a permit may be required from their office prior to any construction. Public notice of the application was mailed to surrounding property owners on October 8th in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, and no comments have been received from the public to date. And we will be providing the committee with a subsequent report outlining all comments from staff and a recommendation from planning at a subsequent meeting. But I'm available for any questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does the applicant or the representative have any comments or anything to say concerning the application? If so, please come up to the lectern and just state your name, please. We're just going to make sure the microphone's on there so everybody can.
There you go.
My apologies. Good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Baranka. I am the general contractor helping the homeowner's father in assisting with this build. The garage in question that we have submitted an application for to extend the back of it will just allow us to get a car properly parked inside with the garage door closed. It's just a little small, it's a little short, and we would just like to make sure that everything functions properly within the garage. We had submitted the application originally with the garage to Upper Thames Conservation Authority when we did the original plan to do the house. We did separate the two permits, one for the renovation of the home and second with the garage, being that the garage needed your respectable weigh-in about the minor variance setback. So we have completed the renovation of the home. We've been patiently waiting to have our time here to present this with you. We are anxious to try to get this done while the weather still allows us. We have, but we are patient and completely understanding that there's been time and process to all this, and we would love to continue on with getting this garage wrapped up this season. Grant will say a few words about this.
Grant Darling, I'm Emily Darling's father, so she's basically asked me to speak instead. And again, we're looking to comply and with your rules and regulations, and we're just asking again for this minor variance to be granted so we can complete the project. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I will now open this meeting to comments from the public. This portion of the meeting provides the one opportunity for individuals to speak to the application and have their comments considered by the planner and committee of adjustment before the report and recommendation on the requested minor variance is brought forward at a subsequent meeting. Any person attending who wishes to provide comments in support or opposition to the application may do so now. Please approach the lectern and state your name and address for the public record. Would anybody like to make comment on this? Seeing none. Members of the Committee of Adjustment now have the opportunity to ask questions about the application. However, they may not offer any comments at this time. If any members have questions? Member Haliru, please.
Thank you. I have a question regarding the permit that you say you submitted to Upper Thames. Has that been approved?
Yes.
Okay.
The full permit for the home and detached
Completely was approved.
was completed as one.
Okay.
Being the fact that it involved surveying, which you guys have records of, engineering, and specifications to flood engineering. So all that has been taken account of, and it is all within scope.
All right. Thank you.
Further questions? Member Hughes, please.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. This is to the planner. Now, you had mentioned something about not non-conforming earlier in the report. Is that because the garage is now currently built to a point where it's not within that 1.2 meter from the property line?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, that's correct.
Follow up? Okay, so there would just be the extension of that, and that's what they're asking for. Is the extension going to be going out the back or coming to the front?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if you refer to plate 3 in the staff report, it will be going out the back. I'm not sure if you can see my cursor there, but that's the approximate location of the proposed addition there.
Any further questions from members of the committee? Seeing none. If there are no further comments or questions, then the public meeting for this application is concluded. The application will now be scheduled to come before the Committee of Adjustment, a subsequent meeting during which the planner's report and recommendation will be considered and decision will be made. We will now consider the resolution for this application. Member Wilson, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Member Hudson, that the Town of Ingersoll Committee of Adjustment receive report number CP 2024-349 as information.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. As a reminder, if any member of the audience wishes to be notified of the committee's decision in respect of the minor variance, they must either sign the attendance sheet that is located in the foyer outside the council chambers or submit a written request to the Secretary of the Committee of Adjustment, Danielle Richard, at danielle.richard@ingersoll.ca. The Secretary must provide notice of the Committee of Adjustment's decisions to all those who request a copy within 10 days after the committee renders its decision. Third parties that are entitled to appeal the decision to the OLT must do so by filing with the Secretary within 20 days of the notice of decision. The tribunal has the power to dismiss an appeal under subsection 1745 of the Planning Act if an appellant has not provided the Committee of Adjustment with oral submissions at a public meeting or written submissions before a decision has been rendered by the committee. The notice of appeal must set out the objection to the decision and the reasons in support of the objection accompanied by the required fee. If there's no further comments or questions, then I'll ask for the resolution to adjourn this Committee of Adjustment meeting. Councillor Hudson, please. Or Member Hudson.
Thank you. Through you. Moved by myself, seconded by Member Use, that the Committee of Adjustment public meeting now be adjourned and that the November 12, 2024 regular meeting of council come back into order.
Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Council is now back in session, and I will step out as I've declared pecuniary interest on the next matter.
I declare the public meeting to be open. The meeting is being constituted as a public meeting held under the Planning Act to consider proposed amendments to Consolidated Zoning Bylaw 04-4160. Any person in attendance, including those participating virtually, may make a presentation to council in support or opposition to the zone change applications. Individuals who wish to receive the decision of council on any application being considered this evening must sign the record of attendance outside of council chambers or submit a written request to the attention of the town clerk, Danielle Richard, at danielle.richard@ingersoll.ca. The Ontario Land Tribunal has the power to dismiss an appeal under subsection 25 if an appellant has not provided counsel with oral submissions at a public meeting or a written submission before a bylaw is passed under this section. The application to be heard this evening concerns applications OP 24-11-6 and ZN 6-24-05, 223 Clark Road East, Clark Commercial Shopping Center, Inc. Does any member of council have a conflict of interest on the application to be considered? Has the clerk received any additional correspondence on the application that has not been noted on the agenda?
I have not.
I now request Planner Heather St. Clair to provide an overview of the application and an explanation of the requested zoning amendment.
Thank you. Applications have been received for official plan amendment and zone change to facilitate the establishment of a medical office consisting of a hearing aid clinic within a proposed commercial plaza at the northeast corner of Hollingshead Road and Clark Road. The subject lands are approximately 1.73 hectares or 4.3 acres in size and are currently vacant, and surrounding land uses include industrial uses to the south and existing and planned service commercials to the east, west, and southeast, as well as existing and planned residential uses to the north. It is proposed that the hearing aid clinic will be 117 square meters or 1,200 square feet in size and will be located within a bank of commercial uses of 4 commercial rental spaces shown as Unit 1C on Plate 3 of the staff report. The subject lands consist of a larger commercial plaza, which has been site plan approved for a proposed grocery store, a large-scale retail store, and a fast food restaurant. In support of the application, a market impact analysis has been prepared to evaluate the proposal with respect to compatibility with surrounding land uses and the effect the proposal may have on existing and planned uses in the area, as well as the overall impact the proposed use may have on the planned retail and office function of the downtown core. So as noted, site plan approval has been granted for the development of the commercial plaza, and the applicants have begun site servicing work and have been working with the building department on permitting requirements for future development. The subject lands are designated as service commercial in the official plan, which are intended to provide for locations for a broad range of commercial uses that for the most part are not suitable to locations in the downtown core because of their requirements for large lot area, access or exposure requirements, or due to compatibility conflicts with residential development. So generally, service commercial uses are intended to cater to vehicle traffic and single-purpose shopping trips, where customers are generated typically from a passing, wider-ranging market area. Uses permitted within the service commercial designation include such uses as hotels and motels, car sale uses, convenience commercial uses, retail food stores and recreation, gas bars and car wash facilities, and fast food and restaurants. And other uses which generally require larger areas for on-site storage of goods or vehicles, and other commercial uses that offer services to the traveling public. So in general, larger scale commercial uses are intended for the service commercial designation, while small offices and professional uses are typically encouraged to locate within the downtown area. A site-specific policy also applies to the subject lands that was established through previous decisions by the Ontario Municipal Board in 2011. And these decisions were based off market impact analysis studies that were prepared for the approval process at that time, which established commercial gross floor area maximums for specific uses in order to ensure that appropriate development for commercial uses was achieved on the subject lands. And this site-specific policy also applies to the vacant commercial lands that are located to the immediate east and north of the subject lands, and is also reflected in the associated zoning that applies to the property. So in addition to the specific gross leasable commercial floor area restrictions for certain uses, this site-specific policy, which again was based on that market impact analysis that was completed in 2009, the subject lands prohibit certain uses from developing on them, including beer and liquor stores, banks, nursing homes and retirement homes, schools, daycare centers, and professional offices, which is why an amendment to the official plan is required to facilitate this proposed use. The subject property is zoned as Highway Commercial Zone, HC-10, which is a site-specific zoning that also applies to the lands to the immediate east and north of the subject property. And similar to the official plan policies, this site-specific zoning was also established by way of the Ontario Municipal Board decision in 2011. The HC-10 zoning permits a wide range of commercial uses that are consistent with the service commercial designation and the site-specific policies in the official plan, but does not include a medical center. And as Council will recall, a number of minor variances have recently been granted to the subject lands with respect to the parking and loading provisions, as well as the setback requirements of the zoning bylaw. So notice regarding the applications was circulated to surrounding property owners and public agencies, and to date, no comments from the public have been received, and a supplementary report outlining the comments from the public agencies, and a staff recommendation will be provided to council at a subsequent meeting. And I'm available for any questions on the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Does the applicant or the representative have any comments to make concerning the application?
Yes.
Welcome. Whenever you're ready, we can hear you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hashim, and I have Paul Kitson as well here from Westel. We are the developers and the applicants. And I just wanted to give some quick context to the site itself as well. So we recently got approved for our site plan here, which is a kind of a commercial center here with our national tenants, fan favorites such as grocery stores, retail, fast food chain restaurants. And the intent here is the existing official plan designation doesn't allow the medical office. And the intent isn't to change the designation, rather it's just to tweak the language to permit the medical office here, as well as within the zoning. On top of this, as a supplementary report, we were required to do the market study, in which we went ahead with the chosen public staff consultant that was requested, and which they did the market study, which kind of compared it to the PPS, the existing policy, as well as just in terms of land use context as to whether this is allowed. And it was determined ultimately that because it's such a minor change, it's such a minor deviation, as well as it doesn't have too much notable impact on the site as a whole and just on the overall Ingersoll landscape. So I just wanted to add those couple of comments and just kind of provide a quick context/introduction. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now open the meeting to comments from the public. This portion of the meeting provides the opportunity for individuals to speak to the application and have their comments considered by the planner and council before a report and recommendation on the requested zoning amendment is brought forward for decision at a subsequent council meeting. Any person from the audience who wishes to provide comments in support or opposition of the application may do so now by coming forward to the lectern and stating their name and address for the public record. Seeing none, members of council now have the opportunity to ask any questions about the application. However, they may not offer any comments at this time. Are there any questions from council? Councillor Hughes?
Thank you. Through you. To the planner, is this just a site-specific, meaning building or unit-specific rezoning? Or is it rezoning for the whole area? So if they want to choose a different building or want to add in other medical businesses into one of the other units, is this zoning allowing that, or is it just specific to that one specific unit? I use specific a lot.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. Typically, when we receive these types of applications, so at this point, the property has already been granted site plan approval. So the applicant, so we know that they have 4 commercial rental spaces on the southeast portion of the property. We know that the hearing aid clinic will be going into one of those spaces. If they were to change that, they would likely be looking at an amendment to their site plan approval. So typically what we would do in a situation like this, if staff were supportive, is the amendment to the zoning would apply site-wide, but it would limit the specific use to the specific area that they're proposing. So not necessarily the area specific to the location on the site, but the size. So it would be tied to the 117 square meters that they're proposing. So if we were to draft a supporting bylaw, it would be to allow for all of the existing uses that are permitted on the site, plus a medical center of the 117 square meters that they have approval for in that space.
Any further questions? Councillor Haliru?
Thank you. Through your Mayor, Deputy Mayor. The question, I heard him say something about the tweak. It's just to tweak a name or tweak. What is exactly being tweaked to make sure it complies? Maybe I should be asking a question to him, but he's gone.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, I can try to answer.
Yeah.
I think what they mean is to tweak the policies, to provide that minor amendment to allow for this specific use. Right now, the policies don't allow for this use. So we would amend those existing site-specific policies and amend that existing site-specific zoning to allow for this specific use they're talking about. I also use specific a lot.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Van Kooten-Bostons, and then Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. This might be something for Michael, I'm not sure, but in the past, have we had others put forward a similar in this respect for wanting to put medical offices not within the downtown area? And are you knowledgeable as to how we found that to be at that time?
I don't think we've had this request that I can think of in the, can you think of one, Heather?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, I can think of one example. It's at the southeast corner of King Street West and Whiting Street, across from the Independent Grocer. They also went through an official plan amendment, and they established I believe it's chiropractor office in that location there. That's the only other example that I can think of.
If I could, through you, Deputy Mayor, I was trying to think of the time frame on that one. Must be pretty old. Yeah. So Heather knows more than I know and longer than I know, so that's quite good.
Councillor Hughes?
Yes, thank you. Through you, so it says here to permit medical office and again, this is currently our requirement to keep all of these within our downtown. Is there a zoning, here we go again, a specific zone change that we can make it to adhere to a hearing aid business only?
Through you, Deputy Mayor. We can. The applicant in this instance has requested the medical office to be permitted. They have confirmed that it consists of a hearing aid clinic. Their main goal at that location would be to sell hearing aids, so it would be largely a retail use. But because it has that audiologist component to it, it falls under the definition of a medical center. So if that's something that council would like to see, that restriction to a hearing aid clinic, that's something I can definitely speak with the applicant about, and we can bring forward that recommendation.
Thank you. Any further questions from council? Councillor Van Kooten-Bostons?
Is there a reason why this didn't come before us when they first came to us? Would it have held them up from doing things, and are they thinking it's easier to do this now? Have they given any indication? I apologize, I would have liked to have asked the applicant that myself, but was there any indication as to why that wasn't brought forward to begin with?
Yes, through you, Deputy Mayor. Essentially, it was around timing. The applicants were looking to secure their site plan approval. They knew that they would be developing this as a commercial rental space. Ideally, their preferred use was the hearing aid clinic, but they knew that they would be marketing it as a retail space regardless if they got approval for that or not, so they decided to wait for these applications until after they had site plan approval. If it were to be turned down, they would have to fill that space with a different commercial use that's permitted in the highway commercial zone.
Councillor Haliru?
So to Heather, through you, Deputy Mayor, is there a way that we have a policy that actually tells people what is allowed before they even come through? Like when they actually own the space or they're looking to acquire or build the space, that they know what we allow or not allow, even if it's you owning it and renting it out, before we start getting all these amendments later?
Yes, through you, Deputy Mayor Wilson. The official plan is available online. Most developers in the area are very familiar with the planning process. We also have what's called a pre-consultation process, where we encourage all applicants to meet with us in advance of submitting any applications, so we can discuss with them what is approved, what's permitted, what isn't permitted, and what types of approvals they would need in order to facilitate their desired development. So the applicants were aware that the hearing aid clinic was not permitted. They chose to move ahead with their site plan application and wait for this process until after they had that site plan approval. And at this time, they are working on getting the initial groundworks done for the commercial plaza. So this is a process that can kind of happen in the background to that, now that they have those approvals.
Are there any further questions from council? Seeing none. If there are no further comments or questions, then the public meeting for this application is now concluded. The application will now be scheduled to come before council at a subsequent meeting, during which the planner's report and recommendation will be considered. I believe we have a motion from Councillor Hughes, please, to receive the report.
Yes, thank you. Moved by myself, Councillor, I think this is the right one, T2320, yes. No, that's not the right one, sorry, apologies. There it is there. Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Haliru, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive Planner's Report CP-2024-363 as information.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, that's carried. The public meetings to consider proposed amendments to Consolidated Zoning Bylaw 04-4160 are now concluded. As a reminder, if any member of the audience wishes to be notified of the decision of council in respect of any zoning bylaw amendments, they must submit a written request to the town clerk, Danielle Richard, at danielle.richard@ingersoll.ca. The clerk must provide notice of council's decision to all those who request a copy within 15 days after the day the bylaw is passed. Anyone may appeal the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal by filing with the clerk within 20 days of the notice of decision. The notice of appeal must set out the objection to the bylaw and the reasons in support of the objection, accompanied by the required fee.
Okay, that concludes our public meeting portion of the agenda. Now we'll go down to delegations and presentations. I'd like to welcome Stephen Owen, Parkinson Society, please. Welcome and thank you for your patience.
There you go. I had to get the hover just in the right spot so I can click forward. Your Honor, Your Worship, Your Honor, that was the last time I was before a court. I'm sorry. Your Worship and Council, thank you very much for having me this evening. I'll do my best to get through in 10 minutes here, and thank you, Danielle, for expediting my process to get here. I'm kind of on a tour of councils and around my region. You'll hear my region is quite large, so I'm doing my best. So here we are in Ingersoll tonight. So thanks very much for having us. This is an information only for awareness, but I want you to remember this wonderful face when I come back and ask for something. Full transparency. We have a tagline at the Parkinson Society Southwestern Ontario, from which time I'll just say PSSO from now on, because it's really long and hard to say that. And it's hope is close to home, and you'll see how we have how we're working to live up to that mandate. So when a person is diagnosed with Parkinson's by their medical doctor or neurologist, and we'll speak to that too in detail as well, they start a journey, and their journey with Parkinson's will involve symptoms, treatment, and medication as well. And we're hoping that along that journey, either post-diagnosis or even pre-diagnosis, that the Parkinson Society of Southwestern Ontario becomes something that is becomes an entity that they get involved with. Just a little bit about Parkinson's disease. It's a progressive degenerative neurological disorder caused by a lack of neurotransmitter in the brain called dopamine. Dopamine helps us to speak properly. I'm struggling with my dopamine tonight out of nervousness, and balance, coordination as well. So, yeah, you may have heard of dopamine. If you've ever engaged in a conversation about ADHD, please do not quote me saying there's a connection. There isn't. I'm just referring to that word. Unfortunately, Parkinson's is the fastest growing neurological disease in the world right now, but it's also one of the most studied because we're trying to come to an end. Michael J. Fox has coined a phrase that they're here until Parkinson's isn't. I wish we had that because it's a really good one. I'd love to work myself out of a job and go back to pastoring, but here I am. There's about 100,000 folks diagnosed right now in Canada with Parkinson's, and I'm going to use the term about. Again, when I say about, 43,000 of those folks live in Ontario, and about 10,000 of those folks live in our area of Southwestern Ontario. And the reason I use those terms about, and I don't use specific, I use terms like about, is because it's census-based, right? And so not everyone answers the census with the information that the census takers want. And so we use the word about a lot. We're all probably really familiar with the outer symptoms or manifestations of Parkinson's. You all have this, and I would encourage you to look over this and familiarize yourselves with that. So I won't spend too much time, but we're probably all familiar with the tremor, the rigidity, the gait issues, and I just mean the walking issues. But there are the internal, the non-motor, as we've referred to them, symptoms of Parkinson's, which are something that's not really focused on because it's the inward stuff. So I'm talking about depression and anxiety, cognitive challenges that can come further on in the diagnosis, can actually morph into Parkinson's dementia, so it's like a double whammy. Dizziness and fainting, the lungs can be affected, muscular, there can be weakness and aches, and that can easily be associated with just general aging, and so it's hard to see that as well. Currently, Parkinson's is a clinical diagnosis, so your medical doctor or your neurologist is going to look at you and how you present. I don't have Parkinson's. I have something very similar to Parkinson's, and that was a process I went through too as well. I just want to stop here for a second while I'm on a personal anecdote and just say that there is approximately 1,400 people to one neurologist right now. Yeah, right? That's a really hard statistic. And so I myself waited about 18 months to see a neurologist. So when depression and anxiety is part of Parkinson's, you can imagine how that's immediately triggered. And so I know we don't have the power municipally, but we're hoping, and I was misquoted on this before, so I'll be really careful in what I say. We're hoping that all levels of government at some point can mitigate the issues that we're having of placing doctors and specifically neurologists in our municipalities. I hope that was okay. A person who is seeking treatment, obviously we stress exercise is really important, medication is really important, as well as nutrition and stress management for the reasons that I've mentioned before. Deep brain stimulation is a surgery right now that mitigates the outward symptoms like tremoring that happens not with everyone. Not everyone, it's invasive, so not everyone opts for that. Plus, they have to be under 70 to do that, and there's a battery of cognitive tests. It's not just like, I'm under 70, I have Parkinson's, give me deep brain stimulation. There's a lot more to it than that. So that's why you won't see too many people with that, but it's a really interesting science. So if dopamine is produced in the substantia nigra part of the brain, so if you cut my head in half and look right down in the center, you'd have to trust me as I tell you that others tell me that that's where the substantia nigra is. And the electrodes go in like this and center on a 9mm plot of property in the center of the brain and stimulate that part of the brain to reduce tremoring. So it is an invasive thing, so that's why you're not seeing many people. And then we come in with education and support, and I'll talk to that in a little bit as I talk to you about the Parkinson's Society Southwestern Ontario. Our mission and vision is just to reach, just in summary of that, is to reach every person in Southwestern Ontario affected by Parkinson's and to bring them programs, services, and support that increase their quality of life. And we do that in a number of different ways. We offer them support through support groups. We, through funding of different programs and services, and through referrals to different things. We're a non-medical organization, so we don't dispense with medical advice, but we point people to those proper places. We provide counseling through partnerships right now with King's University College at Western University. We have 2 students a year that come to us and provide counseling, so you can imagine with anxiety and depression and all the other stuff that comes along with Parkinson's, that's really important as well. We offer programs like boxing and dancing. Boxing is pretty important. I saw you go, boxing, yeah. Boxing is important to folks with Parkinson's because they're trying to hone in on they're not boxing each other and knocking each other out, but it's kind of like air boxing, shadow boxing. But dance is important as well, and we're trying to get away from the word dance to attract a broader audience by calling it light exercise, and that's getting a little bit more traction because I'm not signing up for any dancing.
Certainly don't want to rush you, but you got about a minute and a half left.
A minute and a half left, okay.
So just within reason there,
Oh, but then you're going to ask 10 minutes of questions, so that's good. We provide awareness through our Walk for Parkinson's, which I'll talk about on the next slide. Our education is important to us. We're funding education. We just gave away $100,000 in bursaries to students at Western through research. And I'm proud to say that in Oxford County, we raised $10,702 this year in our walk, and that is likely to go up by the end of the year. We represent a vast area, Southwestern Ontario. There are 4 of us, like me, not as good looking, but there are 3 others in our area, Southwestern Ontario. And what I'm here about tonight is that we're just trying to raise general public awareness. Our family physicians have not entirely caught up with Parkinson's, although it's the fastest growing neurological disorder, they're not really caught up with that, as well as other healthcare professionals like occupational therapists, speech language pathologists and PSWs, and obviously our mental health professionals as well. And that brings me to the last slide. How's that?
well, very well done on timing.
Thank you,
And very well done on presenting your message, because I think, you know, it was very well presented, and there's some important items in there. I can definitely tell you about dopamine, because I am diagnosed with ADHD, so
There you go.
it's an important one. I'll open the floor to questions from council on the presentation. Councillor Van Kooten-Boston, please.
Thank you for being here. Good job. You know what? One of the more entertaining ones that we've had, and I appreciate that. Speaking about dopamine deficiency, is there any medication that can be taken to bring that deficiency into more normal levels?
That's a really good question. It's a good question, and it's a frustrating question at the same time. You may not have heard. I shouldn't assume that you've heard of the most commonly prescribed medication for Parkinson's is called levodopa, commonly used in combination with another medication called carbidopa, because every medication has side effects, and then another medication is introduced to try to mitigate those side effects. So levodopa introduces to the body, it's introduced to the body in pill form, and the body, once it gets through the intestinal wall into the bloodstream, past the blood-brain barrier, and into the brain, then the brain goes, I need to turn this into dopamine. So we can't directly give the body dopamine, but we give the body something that it produces dopamine from. And the frustrating part of that is that levodopa, carbidopa has been now used for over 60 years. And so that's a frustrating thing. Although there are other medications on the market, those are still the most commonly prescribed. So thank you for that question.
Further questions? See none, thank you very much.
I can come back and present on something else if you'd like. Thank you for your hearing tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Haliru, please, a motion to receive.
Through you. Thank you so much for that presentation. Wonderful. So moved by myself, Councillor Haliru, seconded by Councillor Van Kooten-Boston, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive Stephen Owen's delegation regarding the Parkinson Society of Southwestern Ontario's information.
Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And now we'll call upon Ben Lampkin, please, for attainable housing delegation, please. Welcome back, Ben.
Good evening, everyone, Your Worship, staff, town staff, executives, town folks from Ingersoll. My name is Ben Lampkin. This is not a delegation on attainable housing. The title of my delegation tonight is Immediate Humanitarian Aid for Ingersoll's Vulnerable and Diverse Populations. I have a meeting tomorrow morning at the county under the same heading, and I'm not really sure how I will proceed there, but it's going to go down to -2 tonight. We don't have a water spigot anywhere in town for people that don't have housing. Is that a human rights issue? So I know there's people here tonight not necessarily interested in what I have to say, but more so interested in the conversations that are going on. I had an idea of coming forward with a motion tonight. I've not come full circle on that, so I don't want to get ahead of myself. I would ask, though, that after tonight's meeting, that council, direct staff to investigate the possibility of reviewing bylaw 044160, and that is the parking of recreation vehicles over the winter months. So according to 5.312, I won't go into all the details, but I think that we could look at some possible changes as far as what town could do immediately to help direct some motion going forward, possibly. The next is bylaw 024021, tax rebate for vacancy on commercial and industrial land. This is a 22-year-old bylaw on the books in town. I'm not sure of what our vacancy report looks like right now with buildings in town, but it might incentivize some people to move forward. So I'm looking for the help of town, possibly with the tools that the town have, to identify land, possibly put out a request for proposals with that land in order. And I wish everybody well that's working forward on this and the people that came out to support. You will not see me back on the agenda in 2024. Thank you for having me speak tonight.
Before you go, just make sure there's any questions.
Sure, thanks.
And I have one. It says, you said to look for and identify land.
Right.
Was there a specific, something that you were looking for that land?
Well, I would like to see towns start to work towards a solution. So last time I spoke, we chatted at length kind of how we were looking for somebody to work with us at county about the almighty dollar. And if we get an answer back from county to work towards a project, or if we're working with one of the service partners, one of the not-for-profits around, are we set as a council with any designation on any public land, regardless of the zoning, new parcels out by the highway, old parcels down by the river, are we set to move forward with any ideas? If that offers any clarity. Thanks for the question.
Any further questions to the delegation? Nope. Councillor Hudson, please.
Ben, what was the first thing you talked about? The water? Something about a...
Thank you for highlighting that. So not that long ago, I was in charge of bicycling around town, and this definitely came up. We do not have a water spigot available downtown for anyone. Basically, once the bathrooms are closed at the parks, there's no water supply. We've identified, I think collectively, that we need to do something. This is a pretty basic human need, is to have water. And if we're continuing to do nothing, then the onus is being put onto our corporate partners. I could name the restaurants. There's very few that are open all night. And there's a church that has a spigot that I've been informed also does not operate the spigot through the wintertime. So yeah, that's my comment.
Any further questions? Deputy Mayor Wilson, please.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. Not necessarily a question to Ben in particular, but Ben was here last month. Council passed a motion asking staff, or I suppose I should say that Ingersoll would be supportive of exploring opportunities to partner with the county to come up with some of those solutions, because I hope, it never moves as fast as we hope it does, but I'm hoping maybe staff could comment on maybe what has happened since you were here last and your presentation today.
Mr. Graves.
Through you, yes, some significant work has been done at the county, and we've been working closely with them. I believe they are trying to acquire shelter spaces for over the winter and are working on some agreements for that will provide some spaces within the town as council had hoped. We are trying to do what we can to support them and augment that in ways that we can. I think that will move forward significantly. And of course, council is planning to incentivize affordable housing on some of the Merck lands that they've already intend to develop. So we are talking further about those. That is more long-term, but in the short term, the shelter spaces are happening quite quickly, and we appreciate the county working so fast.
And if I can just add to that, council passed a resolution saying they were supportive of actions here, and that was taken to county, and it was accepted. And I will say that I received a lot of great feedback from my council colleagues at the leadership that showed, and certainly was very well received from county staff as well. So that was Councillor Haliru, please, and then Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, the question I have, I want to direct the question to Kyle as a recreational director. Do we have any spigots anywhere around the town, recreational centers or parks that could be open at night?
No. If they were, they'd have to comply with public health regulations of testing of the water, et cetera. But we don't have any facilities like that, no.
Mr. Graves?
But of course, if the goal is to acquire shelter spaces, those would include both washrooms and water.
Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you. Hey, Ben, welcome back. So you had mentioned about bylaw number 04-4160, section 5.3012. What are you said we need to have a look at that. What are you, do you have a suggestion of what we should be looking to do with that?
Sure, thanks for offering to clarify, and without pulling up my paperwork with the second number, I can tell that's in regards to the RV parking through the winter.
Yes.
Right, so, I don't know, it sounds kind of simple to me. There's got to be a reason that we're not doing it already other than aesthetics. We all have somebody in our neighborhood that has an RV that goes somewhere else, probably to a farmer's drive shed or barn for the winter. Well, that's a potential housing unit for somebody, perhaps in a driveway in town. That was my idea, just a high-level look, and really I was trying to poke some holes in the bylaws because that's one of the simplest things that we could do, I believe, as a council would be just to kind of reword or remove some older inefficient language, and I'm sure there's other people that would want to weigh in on that kind of a change, but that's kind of where I was going with that.
Thank you. Councillor Haliru.
Question. So I'm not getting you, you're saying if the RVs were owned by people, that they would be asked to sublet them or house people with them in their own homes? Or are you asking for it to be taken elsewhere or to be rented? Or what is exactly what you're thinking?
Thanks for the question. My thinking, so it's great to have the discussion because I haven't had a lot of discussion with other people, specifically around the bylaws. But yeah, those kind of ideas, if you have an RV at your house that you could sublet, there's got to be a reason we're not doing this already in other communities, whether there's fire code or what have you, why RVs have to disappear for the wintertime. But this is a potential housing unit available to be rented out or even just as a location for somebody to reside for the wintertime, right, with heat and services nearby. Just an idea, really, that's all I'm starting with there.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. One question for Ben and then followed up by a comment. You mentioned you're going to the county tomorrow. Are you going with the same delegation you've made today, or do you have a different ask for them?
You're getting ahead of me. So I had a different idea when I came forward today. I have not come full circle. I have not spent enough time. So I will let you know.
So if I may, Mayor?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I just want to underscore to you, we've had a conversation before, but for others who wouldn't have been privy to the conversation, the reason you're being encouraged to go to the county is because they are the government body that receives funding from the province to deliver homeless prevention services. Right. So I pulled up the report in 2024. The planned allocation is about 2.9 million. And last year, 2.9, the year before that, 1.7. Okay. So the reason we're encouraging you to go to the county is that's who's funded to deliver these services in our community, not because we want to brush you off or say it's not our problem. I think we're very supportive of finding solutions, but fortunately, unfortunately, the county has the funding to make those decisions for service delivered in Ingersoll.
Thank you.
Councillor Haliru, please.
All right, thank you, through your mayor. I just want to ask a question to the audience. These supporters, how many people are currently in Ingersoll that are homeless right now in the audience? 10? So do you know that?
There's many more of us too. There's probably 30.
Okay, so are you all seeking to stay in Ingersoll, or do you know about the Operation Sharing
So
beds?
just, this is not a public participation meeting. We have a delegation, and we can certainly have those conversations after the meeting. But
Can I ask it to him?
if Ben would like to answer the
Okay,
question.
so Ben,
Sure.
the question I'm asking is, because we've heard also that Operation Sharing has bed spaces that are not fully utilized in the wintertime, and I wonder how many people are able to take advantage of that for now while we wait for solution, because we are definitely hitting the cold weather, and I wonder, yeah.
So this is an informal group, of course, and I'm happy to communicate both ways and have meetings. I would still like it, and I'm not going to ask for a motion, but I feel like this is the kind of issue where a task force could be set up. And I'm not trying to duplicate and go back in a circle, but I think these are the conversations that need to be happening. And I do know that some of the council members and some of the town staff reached out to me after the last meeting, and there was some communication back and forth between some of the members that are here today and that were here last month. So I think that needs to continue on. Is it a stopgap to have services in Woodstock? To some extent it is, but for people to get back and forth that maybe don't have transportation, you know, we're essentially, in my opinion, asking somebody to move, right?
Thank you very much. Unfortunately not. It's not a public meeting, and we just have the delegation. So, but we'd happy to discuss after the meeting. That's not a problem. Sorry. So if there's any further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Van Kooten-Bossens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Haliru, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive Ben Lampkin's delegation regarding, am I reading the right one? I feel like I'm not.
Yep.
I am? Okay. Regarding immediate humanitarian aid for Ingersoll's vulnerable and diverse populations as information.
Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Ben, we will see you tomorrow morning as well. Okay. With that, we will now go back. That includes our delegations and presentations. And now we'll go back to our special staff reports, which is number 8, ED 02124, camping in Centennial Park. And Mr. Grace, please.
Yes, and I'd like to encourage our museum manager to join us, Stephanie Conrad, to give this report.
Hello, and thank you for having me. So this report reviews the effects of the 2024 camping fee increase, the adoption of Camp Spot booking system, and the new social media marketing strategy on the revenue, efficiency, and booking for the Centennial Lane campgrounds. So I hope everybody had a chance to kind of review the report, but the main takeaway from the report itself is that in 2023, bookings relied heavily on manual processes. We had roughly 111 total bookings, and only 14 were fully done online, usually with the help of staff. By contrast, in 2024, CampSpot facilitated 91 fully online bookings out of a total of 120 bookings that we had, making a significant improvement in online engagement and the ease of staff workload. Our increase in revenue was also something that we wanted to highlight. So in 2023, we saw roughly a revenue of $2,477. And then in 2024, we were able to have a revenue of $7,663. This exceeded our projected goal of around $6,675. We were able to achieve 261 nights of camping, and our targeted goal was actually 205. So we exceeded this by 55 additional nights of camping this year. We think that this was in response to CampSpot's online option. So if you go to CampSpot itself, it actually has something similar to like an Airbnb which allowed people who were looking to camp to go onto the website, say, hey, I want to stay in Ingersoll, and then our campsite would come up, and then that opened us up to a larger audience. We also had an enhanced Facebook ad, which increased our visibility. We used roughly about $270 for that, so not a huge expense based on the increase that we saw. Key benefits for CampSpot, it simplified the online and in-person booking, so we really did struggle in the past with booking, so this made it much more efficient for staff as well as people who were looking to book online. It enhanced our site visibility, once again, thanks to that Airbnb kind of function through CampSpot. We were able to integrate our point of sale system, allowing us to be able to sell stuff in our gift shop as well as do booking online, whereas before we had to do 2 separate transactions. This allowed us to do it all in one smooth transaction for our campers. And then it also allows for detailed reporting that makes it easier for the museum staff to do deposits for the most part. We're still learning the system a little bit, but it's definitely shortened the time it takes us to do our deposits. So with CampSpot, they charge $3 for booking fees, or it's a 10% fee if they book through that marketplace Airbnb, which averages about $3.50 because of what our fee is. But this was offset by the camping fee, so we took that into account when we asked for that increase back in April. With the amount of bookings and night stays, we ran it through the Ontario Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Gaming TREM model, and it brought in approximately $104,000 in visitor spending, demonstrating the economic benefits of increased bookings and improved marketing that we were able to offer in 2024. So I'm open to any questions that you might have on the report.
Thank you very much. Questions of the report from council? Councillor Hughes and then Councillor Van Koon-Bosses.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Welcome. So I see here you've switched from Monaris to the Clover Connect, and there was a cost associated with that, which is understandable. Was that recommended by the CampSpot system, or was that a choice that was made, or was there any need to investigate further?
I think I'm on. Okay, so it was a recommendation by CampSpot. We didn't have to transfer over, but if we wanted to be able to sell items through our gift shop and do all of the processes all at once, then we did have to switch over to Clover Connect. We could do it manually behind the scenes, but it wouldn't have been quite as seamless. So that, and it was, I believe, $995 for the system itself. And then we kind of recuperated those costs this year. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Councillor Van Koon-Bosses.
Not a question. I just want to say this is great. I think that we've really, you found something that really drove people to come. And I'm totally impressed. I went and checked out CampSpot, and it's amazing what comes up, and I think that the rates that we went to really stayed within what CampSpot is all about. I'm not seeing us out of line in what we're charging in that respect. I think the highest amount that I seen was like $79, so, but we were right there with everybody else. So good job. And thank you for bringing this to council, because I wouldn't have had a clue, and we would have been just going, well, why was there an increase in the budget line? But I think the report is well done, and I thank you for bringing it. So thank you.
Deputy Mayor Wilson, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you. I'm wondering, with the increase of visitors, if you received any feedback around enhancements they might have liked to see in the future, or things that kind of help plan improvements on any of the sites for them to want to return, or if people were returning based on what they already had access to.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. So what we are seeing is we are only able to offer like a 15 amp service, and a lot of the RVs do require more. So we would we have a lot of requests for us to increase what we're able to offer. I know we have kind of looked into it. It's really expensive to be able to increase that kind of outside of what our camping budget is. They also have requested campfires, so we're not able to have campfires within the park itself. So that's something that we're also looking into as well. And then just being able to advertise a little bit more that they are close to a park, a splash pad, a pool, if that's something that they would like to access. So I think that's something that we can do better on our part, is be able to tell them what we have within walking distance of our campgrounds.
Thank you very much. Any further questions of the report? Seeing none, Councillor Hudson, please.
Thank you. Through you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hughes, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive staff report ED-021-24 as information.
Thank you very much. Discussion. I guess my only comment is, well done. It's always good to see our facilities being used more and more and be self-sufficient. So Ingersoll's a beautiful place, and hopefully more people can enjoy it. And this is just one way that would facilitate that, so thank you. For the discussion, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We'll now move on to T-023-24, reduction and refund of taxes. Mr. Graves?
Yes, and being that this is the Treasurer's report, I'm just going to turn it directly over to Irina.
Thank you, Michael. I will turn it to Mandy, Mandy Clark, Deputy Treasurer. She prepared the report. She knows all about it. And she's here to present.
Welcome.
So this report outlines the applications submitted under Section 357 and 358 of the Municipal Act. Staff are seeking Council's approval for all applications received in 2024 for the 2023 taxation year. As a result, a total of $2,935.75 in property tax adjustments has been canceled, reduced, and refunded. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about the report.
Thank you very much. Any questions of the report? Seeing none, thank you very much. Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Haliru, that the council receives the information report T-023-24 titled Cancellation, Reduction, and Refund of Property Taxes, and that council approve the reduction of taxes on properties identified in the report pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, Sections 357, 358.
Thank you very much. Discussion. Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And that takes us to the final staff report, T-024-24, audited financial statements. And once again, Mr. Graves.
And given the complexity of this one, I'm again going to turn it over directly to Irina.
Yes, thank you. So this report presents the 2023 audited consolidated financial statements, the auditor's report to council, and recommendations for allocating the town's operating surplus. Financial statements have been prepared in according to Canadian public sector accounting standards, and the statements cover the town's operations, business improvement area, Ingersoll Rural Cemetery Board, and part of Earth Corporation. So we have to consolidate these entities. So the town recorded an operating surplus based on cash basis of $1.3 million, driven primarily by higher investment income, dividend income, and additional revenues from community services, and also some savings in controllable expenses. Appendix C, titled 2023 Operating Budget Variance Report, details the actual results by department. The surplus reported in the consolidated financial statements has been confirmed at $4.1 million, and reconciliation of the cash basis operating surplus of $1.3 to the PSAP surplus of $4.1 million is presented in the report as well. So some of the highlights of financial position overview. So the town's accumulated surplus reached almost $80 million, a $4.1 million increase over 2022, reflecting improved financial assets, healthy reserves, and minimal debt. So financial assets and investments rose by $2.2 million, largely due to the acquisition of 74 acres of land. Portions are designated for resale, and of course, we retain a large portion for the construction of the multi-use recreational facility, and also increases in investments in Earth Corporation. Total liabilities increased by $3.1 million, influenced by higher boundary adjustment obligations that we have to calculate every year, and accounts payable strictly related to the site plan securities that we receive and hold from developers. And long-term debt remains low, with no new debt issued in 2023 and $500,000 paid down. Tangible capital assets increased by $5 million due to infrastructure investments, including linear infrastructure, facilities, machinery and equipment, and also the land we purchased, because part of it is being recorded as asset on our statement of financial position. And reserves and reserve funds, the balances have been confirmed at $18.2 million. It's a decrease of 2.2 compared to last year, to previous year. Again, it's largely due to the funds that were allocated for the purchase of the 74 acres to support our future economic development. Staff is proposing to allocate the operating surplus of $1.3 million as follows: $50,000 to clerk's reserve. It's for the downtown parking study that the funds were committed in 2023, but the study was postponed to 2024. $250,000 to the Public Works Equipment Reserve to support the 10-year capital forecast, and based on the projections that Council was presented in October. And the remaining little bit over $1 million to the Arena Facility Reserve to fund the MERC construction. And recommendations that the Council approved the 2023 audited consolidated financial statement and proposed surplus allocations. And I will be more than happy to answer any questions Council may have.
Thank you very much. Questions from Council? Councilor Hughes.
Thank you. Great report. We always like to see surpluses, but the questions, I think I've asked it already in previous years. This doesn't reflect an overtaxing of our residential or our properties here in the town of Ingersoll, does it?
Well, well, the surplus means that we have ended the year in the surplus position, so we have surplus money. Mm-hmm. So essentially, when we calculate the tax rate, we use estimates. And in case of for 2023, we estimated our investment income at a certain level. So we surpassed these projections due to the very favorable interest rates at the time. And also it was brought up through the budget process, through the 2023 budget process, that we would not include the dividends from the Earth Corporation because they are, first of all, they are unknown at the time. Mm-hmm. And second of all, it was my understanding that was not council direction but some, I would say council wish that we would allocate the money to the MERC reserve if we were to receive the dividend. So, and the large part of the surplus is due to these two factors. So it was almost $700,000. We also, the 50,000, like there is some areas we were able to, we accrued some savings through the controllable expenses. It's all outlined in the report. So yes, so we would say that I can't say we overtaxed, but we did end the year in the favorable position. So we were able to deliver services for less than we expected.
Gotcha, perfect. Follow up?
I can just add to that, on page, I believe the explanation's on page, maybe I don't have a page here, under analysis, so there is a favorable reserve from the variance from the dividend and the investment that was mentioned.
Yes.
I think when you're coming to taxes, it's the last one, which is a favorable variance of $292,000, because the other one is a user fee. So it's one of those things where I agree with you 100% that we want to try to be as relevant as possible, but I think if we put that number into the budget amount, the percentage-wise that staff are off was well within reason.
Yes. No, yeah, no, I understand and agree with that 100%. It's just, we sit here and we read these documents and we see it, just more so for, if you want to say the general public, when they see that we have a $1.3 million surplus, they're, whoa, you know, we don't want anybody to think that we're overtaxing them just to make our job easier to do this. It's great that the analysis comes through and it shows exactly where all of that came from. Yes, there's the favorable variance of just almost 300,000, but ultimately, as you said, the earth dividend, excuse me, the earth dividend and then the investment income is a large contributor to that 1.3, and that is arguably unforeseen until everything is audited and found out at the end. So
Just before you follow up, Mr. Graves.
Yeah, and just to further to that point through you, Mayor, really council's been utilizing that earth dividend and your investment income to allocate that directly to the MERC project for the last few years. You take those numbers out of it and you're well within the goal of what you normally want to be for an annual year and where you want to hit around a surplus. So,
yes, thank you.
But that's really what council's been doing for the last few years, which is a prudent way to go to get you to the MERC.
Absolutely, yeah, it makes sense.
And Councillor Eustace, follow-up, and then Councillor Haliru.
Yeah, just the one follow-up, the boundary adjustment liability 2.3, and that's due to the step increases for the agreement of our boundary with the property taxes.
So the boundary adjustment liability is calculated using present value technique. So when we calculate it, we use discount, like the interest rate, like the discount rate that changes year over year. So when we apply different discount rate, different inflation rate, so that liability fluctuates based on the input of the rates. And it's unfunded liability, so it's not cash. So we don't have to fund it. We kind of fund it through the taxation because we budget for the money we pay to SWOCs for the lands that were brought in our jurisdiction. So it's not really. It's like amortization and depreciation.
Thank you. Thank you. So my question is, the clerk's reserve transfer of the 50,000, that was supposed to be for this year? Or is it something that we haven't spent, or we're going into another year with it? Because it says it's.
Yes, so we budgeted $50,000 in 2023 to fund the downtown parking study. That study was not completed in 2023. It was completed, I believe, Yes, in 2024. So because we taxed our residents to deliver the study, but the actual expense happened in a different fiscal year, I have to do this exercise to transfer the money from 2023 to 2024.
Any further questions? Seeing none. Councillor Haliru, please.
Yeah, that's my motion. Thank you, through you. Moved by myself, Councillor Haliru, seconded by Councillor Van Gouten-Bossens, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive report T-024-024 as information, and that the 2023 audited consolidated financial statements be received and approved, and further that Council approve the $1,317,806.47 operating surplus to the to be allocated as follows: $50,000 to the Clerk's Reserve, $250,000 to the Public Works Equipment Reserve, and $1,107,806,047 to the Arena Facilities Reserve.
Thank you very much. Discussion. All I'll say is that looking at these statements, I think it really shows that Ingersoll's in a strong financial position. Certainly, there's sufficient cash flow to not only take care of the operations on a day-to-day basis, but also invest so we can get investment income and fund the reserves to adequate levels that we need. And so it also shows that we're not relying on debt to fund those operations. And so that's a good thing. It leaves us some options going forward, which we know about. And certainly the surplus adds to that picture of increased financial stability and reaching our goals. So I certainly support where this is being used for. One's going to asset management, one's going to something that's already been done, so it's more deferred revenue. And then we have the arena, which is we know is all of a goal of council. So, but all in all, it shows a strong financial picture. The unfunded liability on the PSAB statements plays with the numbers a little bit, but we know that that's going to be a good news story in the future once those lands are developed for what they're used for, and we'll be able to fund that because we do have adequate money coming in to cover those costs. So, in the end, I know it's a yearly thing that we do these, but it does show that we have growth within the town and that we're replacing the assets when we're needed, and that there's lots of opportunity available if things come up. So that's always good to have options. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We will now go down to correspondence. Minister of Energy, Deputy Mayor Wilson, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hudson, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive the correspondence from the Minister of Energy and Electrification as information.
Thank you very much. Discussion? Obviously, we know that we need more, we will need, our hydro uses will go up. I do find it interesting that the minister says by 75% by 2050. The IESO says 60%, so there's about a 15% sway there. But it's certainly, that's a lot of energy difference. So I'm hoping that, I know that they're both on it, and hopefully we'll be able to meet that demand, because I was at an auto mayor's meeting on last Friday? Yes, last Friday. And that was one of the topics brought up by the industry, was the amount that the federal government has released targets about how much charging stations and electrification that we need to see in that area, and how much that's going to affect our province going forward to be able to meet those needs, to be able to make sure that those vehicles are being able to meet the needs and also the growth that we're seeing. So hopefully this is a good thing that's moving forward, and we'll see some results out of it. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And Safe and Well Child Welfare Funding, Councillor Hudson, please.
By Councillor Hughes, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive the correspondence from Safe and Well regarding Ontario's child welfare services sector need for child welfare services funding as information. And if we want to talk about what they're asking for, we can.
Okay. The Councillor Hughes, you're fine with seconding for now for the first motion on the floor for discussion?
Yes, I am.
Excellent. Councillor Hudson, would you like to start the discussion as the mover?
Sure. So we all have the letter in front of us, and they're asking for immediate financial needs for the society. So just wanting to know what everyone's thoughts are.
I can say that, unfortunately, it wasn't clear to myself exactly what they were looking for in the correspondence. There's certainly a great dialogue of the struggles they're facing. But if we were to provide a letter of support, I'm not sure exactly what would be in that, and certainly don't want to see it go away with nothing, but maybe perhaps we can receive it as information and send that request back to them for more clarity. Certainly, I wouldn't want to send a letter that wasn't useful to them, but I certainly wouldn't want to not support their needs if that's something that council does want to do. So it's just, it wasn't 100% clear that I could find exactly what they were asking for that letter to be. Further
No,
discussion?
yeah, I would definitely support that, open that communication and dig down to exactly what they're looking for. We can write letters all day long, but if we're not putting in the proper information to the proper people, then it's kind of a moot point. So, yeah, definitely, I'd continue to support that motion.
Okay. So right now, it's just the motor received. Is that, if council okay if we provide that direction outside the motion to go back and just get clarification? Is staff okay with that? Is that clear, or would you like that in a motion?
Do you need me to reread it, or?
No, well, we have the motion on the floor just to receive his information, and staff seem to be fine with going back and getting clarification on what they would like, and then we can have that come back at a future meeting, if that's okay. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And support Ox on the Run. Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you. This will be another one that I think we're open for discussion here in regards to the letter that was sent and the motion that we have. The start of the motion is that moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Haliru, that the Council of the Corporation of Town of Ingersoll receive the correspondence from the Oxford County Library requesting support of the Ox on the Run pilot extension as information. There is alternate or in addition to the resolution, basically directing to provide support for the Oxford County Library from or for the Ox on the Run pilot extension. So I'm not sure, number one, how Councillor Haliru feels about that, but I guess just if we can have a discussion regarding the initial and then the support aspect of it.
Yeah, and I can certainly provide some clarity on that for you as where this came from as being a library board member. The Ox on the Run program is a test pilot program to see how it works. And so certainly, as the letter stated, that it was started mid-year, and so they extended that. But county staff, and they were here as well, correct? They came and they did a presentation on the effects of and what Ox on the Run was. And so it always helps to have that feedback from council. They received good feedback from council, but more to have those support letters come back and say, you're seeing a difference in your community with it. It's a valued service. Of course, just like everybody else, this has to receive financial approval through the county council. The library board sets their budget, but it's always good to have those that information for council members who are not on the library board to show that it is a valued service in the community. To those who are, now we're very lucky that we have a library right below us. It's one of the largest ones in the county, but there's lots of rural areas that don't, although I think we've seen the Ox on the Run in our area as well, quite a few times as well. So it's just whether council feels comfortable with that, to provide that support or not, but that's what the library board is looking for is if it is valued there, it's important to say that it is valued so we can keep that service going.
So they're looking for written support, not financial support?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens.
So Ox on the Run has been at many of the Kiwanis events that have been held here in Ingersoll. And it is well utilized. I think that it's a great, worthwhile project, and would love to see us support that in that respect. So I'd throw my support behind the extra resolution in that respect. Those events that they've been at have been free, and therefore, people of all backgrounds are able to come and take part and be able to utilize Ox on the Run. So I think that it's worthwhile, in my opinion.
For discussion? Seeing none.
How do we want to proceed with this motion? Do you want me to read it in full, or?
Well, right now we have a mover and a seconder, I believe, for the first part, but it's your motion if you want to just, okay,
Confer.
yeah, absolutely, we'll allow that. So I'm not going to say no.
Provide, and I'm wondering if we should put in written
Okay. Yeah.
support for the, okay. Okay.
Sorry, sir. Go
That's
ahead.
okay, no worries, no worries. So I'm going to add the extra aspect of the resolution here, or the motion, sorry, and I'll reread the whole thing right from the start. Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Haliru, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll received the correspondence from the Oxford County Library requesting support of the Ox on the Run pilot extension as information.
Sorry,
And that-
Councillor Hughes, we're just having trouble hearing down here. Mr. Graves, could you please? We're just about done.
Continue.
Please continue, Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. Whereas the Oxford County Library at its meeting on August 21st adopted the recommendation contained in Report 2024-35 titled Ox on the Run Pilot Extension, which extended the Ox on the Run pilot for a third year through 2025. And whereas the Ox on the Run pilot serves the underserviced areas and community members of Ingersoll. Therefore, the Council of the Town of Ingersoll provides written support to the Oxford County Library Board and the Ox on the Run pilot extension.
Thank you very much. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And that brings us to WOWC support for OBCM. Councillor Haliru, please.
Yes. This letter is also coming from the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus. They had a meeting and they've asked that we support this letter as well. Simply asking the federal government and provincial governments to do a little bit more about, the mental health situation associated with homelessness, primarily the health issue that is too big a task for most municipalities to handle on their own. So I'll read the motion, which reads, moved by myself, Councillor Haliru, seconded by Councillor Bosens, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive the correspondence from the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus requesting support for the Ontario Big City Mayors Caucus to solve the crisis campaign.
Thank you. Discussion. Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And Councillor Van Kooten, Boston's Committee of the Whole, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilson, that the mover have leave to introduce and go into committee of the whole on the following bylaws. 1, bylaw 24-5352, to amend the keeping of dogs bylaw to allow 3 per dwelling unit. 2, bylaw 24-5353, appoint the 2025 Committee of Adjustment. And 3, bylaw 24-5354, November 12th, 2024, confirmation of bylaw. Council and Committee of the Whole, Mayor Petrie in the chair. On motion, the bylaws are accepted as circulated. That constitutes the first and second reading of the bylaws.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. We're now in the Committee of the Whole. Would anybody discuss any of the bylaws? Councillor Hughes, please.
Just one question regarding the dog bylaw. Since we're now going to be allowing 3 once this passes, do the variance requests that have been preceding this, do they get torn up and everything, everybody's within compliance?
I'll let the clerk speak to that.
Clerk, please.
Yes, they would, because they would no longer hold any water with respect to the bylaw. I did let the applicants who recently attended the meeting last month, the month before, I let them know that this was forthcoming. We still entered into an agreement because I can't forecast what council is going to do. So I let them know that I would follow up with them after the meeting, and we'll reach out to the most recent to the applicants who most recently entered into these agreements to let them know the change in the bylaw.
Councillor Haliru, please.
So when it comes to bylaws like this, that we don't necessarily want to like, hey, everybody can go get 3 dogs. Like, how do we communicate it so everyone has a right to know that they indeed can get 3 dogs without it being a major announcement? Just want to.
Mr. Graves.
Like we normally do, we have a spot on our websites for our bylaws, so we update our bylaws and it's listed there just like we do with like fence bylaw and some of our more common bylaws. That's where we direct people on our website to read the various bylaws and the rules that are governing at the time. We update often some of those bylaws, whether it's, like I say, the fence bylaw or the animal bylaw or trying to think of some other bylaws from that page, noise bylaw. So that's the main tool that we use to distribute that, to disseminate that.
Any further discussion? The one I found interesting was the appointment for the Committee of Adjustment, in that the quorum is considered 3, and that's clarified through the clerk that that's what the legislation says. So it's a different scenario of quorum rather than the majority of council. It is 3 members. So if that ever comes up, we shall know. Yeah. Any further discussion? See none. Deputy Mayor Wilson, please.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hudson, that the committee do now rise out of the Committee of the Whole.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And Councillor Hudson, 3rd reading, please.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hughes, that bylaws 24-5352 to 24-5354 be now read a 3rd time, signed, sealed, and that this constitutes the 3rd reading of the bylaws.
All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We do not have a closed session, so council are used to adjourn the regular meeting.
With pleasure. Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Haliru, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll adjourn the November 12th, 2024 regular meeting of Council at 8:57 p.m.
Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? We are now adjourned. Thank you.